Hi everyone, Paul Levy with Brownells here, and today I'm joined by Dean Sylvester with PWS.
Hello.
And Paul Noonan with FM Products.
How's it going?
And we have an announcement at SHOT Show. You've probably seen it by now. We came out with a BRN-180 upper receiver, and this video is really to go into the details, the history of how this project came up, and just explain our thought process and design that went into the BRN-180. So you're probably well aware of the Brownells Retro line of products. PWS actually assembles the BRN-10 for us. And we got a lot of questions. Hey, make an AR-180. And that would have been great. It's a great rifle. The problem is a lot of stampings, modern production methods don't really gel with the AR-180 and the amount of stampings they use, even though we really love the rifle. So we got all those questions, looked at it. It's a very influential rifle system. The gas system's been used on various firearms. The G36 influenced the 416, on the ACR. It's influenced a ton of modern rifles. So it's a proven design. So how do we implement that and put this upper receiver on the common AR-15 lower to give people options and to give people a folding stock without a buffer tube? So I reached out to Dean and Paul, and we came up with the BRN-180. So this is it right here. This is a pre-production model. And we're going to go into the details on how we took the original AR-180, fit it onto the AR style platform, the constraints we had to deal with, and some upgrades we made, because we did modernize, we obviously modernized the original AR-180 design to meet the needs and wants of the current US customer. So with that said, let's get into the details of the BRN-180. So as I noted, fits on a standard AR-15 lower receiver. Let's maybe step back. Dean and Paul, maybe you can elaborate on the big changes we had to deal with, because offhand, obviously dimensionally, was the stroke of the carrier probably one of the biggest things we had to deal with?
Yeah, there's a certain amount of stroke you need for a 5.56, and Dean was a big help in that, getting the stroke to fit in an upper receiver. Dean, you want to?
Well, and the AR-15 has a shorter general cycle, shorter stroke to it than the original AR-180, so all that had to be accommodated. Plus we have to blend into the lower receiver, so we have a block here, a recoil block that holds the carrier rods. So that took up some of the stroke also, so that's why you'll see that the carriers has a little bit different shape to it of how that's managed. So yeah, that was one of the big design aspects, is controlling the distance of that stroke.
Well, maybe we can go ahead and disassemble the original AR-180, and then we can
call.
talk about how we implemented those changes into the upper receiver. So make sure she's clear again. So cool features of this that we really liked were, one, the ease of disassembly, and you'll see up front on the handguards. If you've ever handled an AR-180, they're super smooth because they ride on these two guide rails and recoil springs. So it's not like the carrier's putting a lot of resistance onto the upper receiver itself. Is that correct?
It almost has no contact.
Yeah, it is.
Which can be nicely oiled.
Yeah, and it's very smooth comparatively to an AR.
Take that out, and here's your carrier. And I'm going to compare everything. You can see that's a little bit longer than the BRN-180. We'll show you the difference here in a sec. So put that down. And here's one of the cool features we really like. So it's a piston-driven gun. You have to maintenance the piston somehow. So that comes off as soon as you have the recoil rods moved. They engage the handguard, and we wanted to retain that feature. And I'll show you that on the BRN-180. And here's really the heart of the rifle right here, is the piston system right there. And that's what we utilized and transplanted. We actually took this pretty much dimensionally exactly.
Yes.
We aren't reinventing the wheel here.
No, it's exactly.
It's exactly, yeah.
Yep, so we didn't have to do from the ground up a whole new piston design. We knew this worked, it's been proven, put that onto the new BRN-180 and ran with it. So that's the original AR-180. I'm gonna take that pin off. I don't have a lower flopping around. But that's the original right there. So take that guy. Was there anything surprising, guys, when you took that apart? The quirkiness that when you take apart, like stuff that stood out as odd or innovative?
We both have some experience designing stuff, and we were really impressed with this design and how smooth it was. Would you agree with that, Dean? I mean, the gun's just smooth.
Well, one of the biggest parts is that you look at every aspect that you see and is visible on the rifle looks rough, and yet it has one of the smoothest actions of any of the semi-automatic rifles that I've handled, because it only has surface contact with the the cam pin slot and then the carrier rods. And that's what amazed me is you pick up this gun and everything looks sheet metal and welded, and you kind of expect that AK or less type feel, and you cycle it and it feels,
Really
I mean, it's
slick.
a Cadillac. Yeah, it's just
it's
absolutely
really slick.
smooth cycle.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and we'll take this guy apart to about the same level as the original AR-180. I guess external features, we'll go through that first before we really get into the guts and compare. But obviously what people expect out of modern AR-15s, they want a full-length, basically monolithic Picatinny rail, which we implemented, as you can see. M-LOK, the de facto standard now for attachment methods, of course have that up front with a nice full-length handguard, so you got plenty of accessory options. You will notice up front, Dean and Paul did an awesome job replicating the original flash hider. The flash hider is excellent. It controls muzzle flip quite well because it's closed on the bottom. And it doesn't really ping compared to a lot of prong flash hiders. This much anyway.
I haven't heard hardly any of the
Surprisingly flat shooter too. Yeah.
And then we've got the dogleg style charging handle, just like the original. And this is pretty darn close to the original. We will have aftermarket charging handles too if you want a nice straight one. We've got some other stuff in the works there. You can see here the ejection port. This is now polymer, so modern materials. We get a nice tight seal there. Very similar in appearance. Put that down real quick. In appearance to the original. So obviously the original is stamped, ours is polymer, but as far as dimensions and function, it's close. So no reason why a dust cover wouldn't work anyways.
Yeah.
So we'll take that off real quick. Obviously the BRN-180 polymer, aluminum, receiver, handguard, steel trunnion, steel barrel, 41 V50, and then nitrided. So we got state-of-the-art finishes, anodizing, mil-spec anodizing, all that good stuff. So took something that they did back in the 60s and used it proper.
I think the materials we used were a lot superior.
There's a punch there.
Okay.
Yeah. The materials that were selected on this were really premium too. There was no expense spared on the bolt and the carrier and things like that.
And I will say one of the reasons too is we looked at the AR-180 and it's like, yeah, that'd be cool to reproduce. You can go buy an original AR-180 for $1,200 to $2,000, depending on which make. So with this, we wanted to have that same spirit of the original AR-180 is make it cost effective for a piston gun. So you're gonna see this sub $800 or sub $800, which I think is definitely the theme of the original AR-180 and its intent. So you get a lot for your money there. We'll slide that over.
Okay.
So there's the upper off the lower receiver. You can see both sides there. I should say free float handguard too. The original gun obviously wasn't free floated, so you do get that added benefit. So as far as disassembly, it's pretty similar. The recoil mechanism is going to come out the rear. This rear buffer and recoil stop it's a polymer, acts as a buffer, and also contains the guide rods.
Exactly.
But it's held in there basically via friction and to create a nice tight seal. So this gun will be nice, so you're not going to get a whole bunch of gas to your face because that's sealed off, and there's no charging handle channel to just direct gas into your face.
It's a great impact modifier too. The materials can work great for that.
So there, all it took was friction. You just rack it to the rear, and there's your recoil guide rods and springs. So in comparison right there, a little bit shorter on the springs, but overall pretty similar setup. And then your bolt and charging handle. Charging handle is going to come out just like the original. You can see these guys. Was there anything unique on the charging handle when you designed it? Just kind of
no.
That's a pretty straightforward one.
Yeah.
One of the interesting parts is the original AR-180 that we were working with. The key was actually soldered on afterwards, and ours is cast all in one piece. I would have never guessed that they would solder that. You think that would be a cast? You can see it's a cast feature. So I thought that was really.
It's extremely castable. That's why I was surprised.
Yeah. So, but I mean, while we were designing, it was very important to keep some of the key features, the key DNA of the AR-180.
Exactly.
And not just end up with something that was a shell of that. And the good part of it was the charging handle, the fact that the rods were the first thing that had to be removed to be able to take off the handguard, which we'll get to next. And to keep some of those key features of flash hider, that was really, really important to us.
Absolutely. And you can see here in the carriers, just to accommodate the length of travel, you can see the contours. You obviously have to use a firing pin that's the same length as an AR-15, so that dictated a lot of the design, right?
Yeah.
So original AR-180, this one. The benefit of the lighter carrier is recoil impulse is pretty darn light.
It's amazing.
Yep. This is actually lighter than a standard mil-spec
Yeah.
AR-15 or M16 bolt carrier.
Well, I think you can also, you don't need a buffer on the lower either. You save weight there, right?
Yeah, exactly. So there's no whatever H2 buffer is, 4.3 ounces. There's none of that reciprocating mass. We basically eliminated that. So, like the original AR-180, once you take out the recoil guide rods, you can remove your handguard. This one just off the top, bottom stays in place. From here, our guide rods are out. They engage this portion right here. I'm not sure what we're exactly calling this piece.
I call it the handguard mounting block.
So the recoil guide rods engage just a little bit into this portion right here. And this U-latch, I call it a U-latch anyways, it engages the recoil rod. So you can actually take this, you can pop it out, you can do it by hand, but we've built in this piece right here so you can use a bullet tip in the field. You simply insert and then pry up, and it pops it out of place. And there's the latch. I'll show you real quick how that works. Take the springs off. You can see here the end of the rods just engage slightly those. So this can't go downwards and your handguard is not going to fall off while you're using the rifle. Once it's disassembled, it can drop free. So from there, that U-latch is out. Now the entire front handguard assembly can come off. You can see where it engaged right here on the barrel. This U-latch just engages right there. Listen for this crisp. Hold up to my microphone. But it's nice, snugly in place. So take that off. Handguard comes off the front, and you can set that aside. And there you go. There's the heart of the BRN-180, or the AR-180, really. Same operating system, really at its core. Same profile, kept the same length. Really, that was...
Yeah, I mean, no, that's pretty much it. There's some very, very slight, maybe diameter differences, but I think the one that I'm working off, actually, we mimicked that exactly. I think that this is a little bit different model on the piston cup.
Yeah.
And we might even show, like, on the handguard mounting, as far as how it mounts on the barrel, and then the other mounting bolt up top.
Yeah, it's keyed.
You know,
it's keyed.
to show how
it's a very tight
where
fit
we're getting the
too.
stability from.
Yeah, so on that, you may ask, okay, well, how'd that handguard fit? How's it going to be snug on this? We basically, well, Dean and Paul designed it so that this profile of the barrel is essentially what would be your barrel net on a normal handguard, I suppose.
Yeah.
And then this top portion, there's a few key things here. The barrel's torqued into the trunnion here at 180 foot-pounds from the factory, and the gas port's drilled. And then this top, this is a screw right here. It's threaded in. That sandwiches the trunnion to the aluminum upper, and then there's 4 lower screws. Those also have clamping force on the trunnion on the sides.
Huge mechanical advantage there.
Yep. So you can see on the front, that trunnion is just sandwiched in there, front to back, and then all the way around.
Yes. There's a ton of clamping force here.
Yep.
A ton.
And then this isn't just a nub that's not doing anything.
That's right. It's a very, very tight fit between both this diameter and this diameter, and that helps keep.
Well, there you can kind of see the how they kind of made up.
So by holding those two diameters, very tight tolerance, plus the distance apart, you end up with a very solid fit of the handguard on the upper in the first place, and then the plate presses it flat against the upper receiver, giving you a really stable handguard fit when you're done. So that is the key to that mechanism, and why you're able to remove it basically toolless disassembly and still have a solid free float handguard.
Now you've mentioned this before. When the barrel heats up, what's that gonna do to the handguard?
It shouldn't change a whole lot.
It's just gonna the fit's just gonna get tighter.
Tighter.
Yeah.
It shouldn't change a whole lot, but if anything, it's going to tighten it up.
Here's one cool thing the design, the AR-180 design allowed is this super slim gas block. It's like AR-15. That's tinier than most AR-15.
Oh yeah,
gas
it's really
blocks.
small. It's really small.
Yeah. So I don't have the measurement offhand, but one aspect with this design is the height of a bore. It's minimal for a piston gun.
It is, yes, it's very
it's tucked way low. Yeah.
Plus you have a 5/8 diameter gas block seat. So that's more the diameter of a gas block you'd see on the really thin profile AR-15 barrels to start with, and then I don't remember the exact number height of a bore, but it's very tightly.
I measured, I think it was just over 2 millimeters above a standard AR-15, and that was my crew measurements in my office with it.
Well,
and then on top of that, you use millimeters, so then nobody
knows
what
exactly.
you're talking about.
That's pretty sweet. Well, it wasn't just designing the gun, but Dean and PWS did a great job of how are we going to assemble this. nice. Like it's very elegant how the barrel and the trunnion are mated to the receiver, and I mean they did a great job, and it was really fun working with them on this.
Yeah, and that allows, so doing those things, cost-effective assembly, manufacturing, allows us to retail for a reasonable price.
Yeah.
You're not going to be paying $2,500 for a piston-driven gun just to have a folding stock and some other features. So real quick, I will disassemble the piston assembly just so you can see
How
really
close
not
it
the
is.
differences, but really just how close it is. There's really only one minor difference I can think of. Here, Dean, I'll let you throw it in there and take it off so everyone can see that smoothly.
Yes, so it comes apart the same in the three-part design. So you have the linkage piece, which takes up the space so it doesn't disassemble under cycling. You got your piston cup. Then you've got your piston rod and the return spring. And then just a gas nipple coming out of the gas block, which is basically the same as the original AR-180.
Well, one thing I wanted to point out that's an upgrade. I mean, I think we're doing a flat wire spring on that piston, right? Is that
Yes,
flat wire?
these are all pre-production parts. So we're using actually original AR-180 springs.
Yes, yeah, we actually, that's what those springs
That's
are
right.
as of now.
And then you can see the portion that comes out of the gas block. You originally used gas rings, or gas sealant rings like you'd see on a AR-15 bolt. We did away with that, right, Dean?
Yes, we've decided that for all of this distance, there's only one area that's a gas seal. So to be able to hold this small distance to a very tight tolerance and create a gas seal without having rings that could possibly wear, break, tear under assembly, disassembly, we've just held our standard just standard piston fit like we do on the rest of our piston rifles, and it works very well and just eliminates some parts and some chances of damaging those while you're taking them apart.
Yeah, I mean, if you were gonna design a piston gun, I mean PWS would be the company to go
they know
to. Yeah, I mean that's
well.
what they do.
So we got to be careful not to confuse these because these are basically identical. There's the op rod comparison. This is original. This is the new production. Pretty much identical as far as operating systems go. Or maybe I already mixed those up. That's the new production. While we got this disassembled and while we're looking at this up front, the flash hider does have a check nut, just like the original.
Yes.
So to take this flash hider off, just loosen your check nut and that'll thread right off.
Yes.
A lot of force.
It's like a
there
lock
holding
nut,
on.
yeah.
Yep. But it does have a standard shoulder so you can attach
Yes.
whatever muzzle device.
Makes timing it easy too. Yeah, so you can.
Yeah, but it'll accept any standard AR-15 M16 muzzle device. It's half 28 threads, same length, mil-spec length. Everything's standard if you decide to use a suppressor or a different flash hider muzzle device.
It's a pretty light profile on the barrel too. I want to point that out.
Yeah, and it's pretty close to the original. Because that's one of the design aspects of the original is lightweight. It'd be silly to make an AR-180 inspired rifle and have an H-bar or something on there. But you can see there just how close, even the trunnion is very similar.
We worked very, very hard to mimic the original shapes, the original dimensions. I mean, the main thing is we have known commodities with the AR-15 of how it cycles, what's inside the carrier, the fire control group, and then the firing pin and how that works. And so, then we have a proven design with the AR-180, just making sure and blending those together without getting ourselves in the weeds and having to reinvent the wheel or cause ourselves some unforeseen consequences. So we held as tight as we could to every design aspect of both rifles and just trying to get them to blend together.
Yep. So we can do a quick reassembly, I suppose, real quick. It's pretty darn simple. And very similar in reassembly to the original AR-180. So just you got the 3 linkage pieces. Of course, the AR-180 was inspired by the earlier Tokarev, the Russian gun, but this design has inspired so many others in just how it captures gas, operates, the short stroke impingement on the carrier for cycling. It's a pretty robust design.
Yeah.
And then from there, you're simply sliding your handguard on. You got the U-latch there, and then you're good.
Here we are, and then we take it out. We'll hand it back over to you. Do we want to show the inside of the carrier?
Yeah, that'd be good. Let's tear apart the carriers. So, like I noted earlier, basically the main design difference is just the overall length.
Yeah.
I'll take apart the original AR-180 here real quick, if I can get my bullet. Pop out that. There's my firing pin, cam pin, and bolt. Of course it's dirty because it's one of my guns. On the BRN-180, we used a standard AR-15 style firing pin retaining pin. So we use off-the-shelf parts to keep costs down that we could then pass on to you. Cam pin comes out, and then there's your bolt. So a few things we did add. Up front, you've got your bolts in comparison. Up front, they look pretty similar. The side profile is a little bit different. One, this was done to accommodate the AR-15 light firing pin, correct?
That's correct.
And use that off-the-shelf part. And then you also added a spring. What was the mindset behind that?
A lot of it's the same reason we use it on our system. Is it doesn't so much change the dynamic under firing, but it helps for assembly. It just keeps the bolt forward, so when you're trying to put in the carrier, you don't have the cam pin flop to the wrong side, and so it just keeps everything in place when you're putting the rifle back together.
Yeah, so there's a few. Check out the carriers. Here's the original. Here's the new one. The one thing I noticed right off the bat is they used a roll pin for the cam guide.
Yeah.
And then this is
machined into the steel, right?
Yep, a solid piece of steel machined into the carrier. But otherwise, profiles are similar. We don't have the auto cut on this one, but the original did. And then guides. And you can see the carrier just kind of rides on the guide rods, but has the same contact and friction points.
And the reason for the differences in this smaller diameter is to fit inside the recoil buffer area back to the length of stroke to be able to make it fit into the AR-15 platform. That area had to be reduced so that the carrier could cycle back into that and still have the same distance as the hammer's coming up.
Right.
You want to be absolute perpendicular.
Right, when the hammer's
so that distance is fixed, but then the stroke is also fixed for us, and that was the way to solve that problem.
Sure. Yeah. And this is a great recoil mechanism because you get this great impact modifier here, which is going to work great.
Yeah. The original AR-180, the one thing I don't like when shooting is it's a little bit snappy, and that on the BRN-180 is largely eliminated. I don't know. It's a lighter carrier combined probably with that aspect as well.
Yeah, it does.
And then you can see the differing firing pins. You can see the the original one, hair longer. So large diameter head, but the more components we could use with the AR-15, the more we could lower the cost.
Plus, if you ever in need of spare parts 20 years down the road, you can use the same AR-15 ejector, extractor springs, firing pin, all of that is all standard stuff.
The key wear items, firing pin, extractor, I mean, if those
basically, anything that's going to give you a problem can be replaced anywhere.
Yep, and on the bolt, so the original bolt was chrome plated. What are we doing on the new one?
Nickel Teflon is what we're doing.
And you use that on all your bolts. It's a great finish, super robust. Reassemblies just like an AR-15. So if you've ever done that, drop your bolt in. With the spring, you need to keep a little bit of tension on it. There's our cam pin right there.
That's the other thing we did to accommodate. We have an aluminum upper receiver versus a steel. So we've given a lot more surface area to the cam pin, if you can see the original compared to ours. That's meant to slide in a steel channel inside here. We have an aluminum channel in the extrusion, so the extra surface area reduces wear and just gives us
distributes the load.
Yeah, distributes the load over a lot more surface.
Yeah, and you have this is a larger surface area there too. So
yes,
yeah, you have both of those are great.
Yep. So reassembly is pretty simple there. Throw your firing pin, retaining pin in, and there's your carrier. So otherwise, reassembly, it's the same as the original. You drop your bolts and carrier in, make sure they line up in the slot. Here you can see actually that cam slot that Dean was referencing. That's right inside there if you can see it, that straight track there. So that's what keeps the bolt from camming out of position. So drop that guy in. Make sure I put the new one in, because those are almost identical. And then slides forward, get my recoil springs on. We did mention the production springs will be flat springs. These are actually original AR-180 springs we modified, well, Dean and Paul modified to get this functioning for a prototype. So throw that back together and put your buffer in, give it a good slap, and it's reassembled. So that's the BRN-180 upper receiver. It does weigh just under 5 pounds, so it's like 4 pounds, 6 ounces, I believe offhand. I'm probably wrong on that, so check our site. But when you have a completely assembled rifle, you're under 7 pounds still. So weight compared to the original AR-180 is right in line. So the goal was not to have a heavyweight gun. So a few things people will probably ask is short variants, different chamberings. This is, by the way, chambered 223 wild with a 1 in 8 twist. What were some of our mindset? What was our rationale for doing that, anyways?
Just that we've had success with the 1 in 8 twist and the 223 wild chamber. It seems to shoot all the different weights. The 1 in 8 twist seems to shoot most of the weights of bullets better. The wild chamber just has been successful of increasing accuracy over just doing the NATO chamber. So we just kind of held to what we knew on that. Yeah, and that's the reasoning behind it. We do the same coating, same everything of
nitride finish. Yeah. So basically, the original gun had a chrome bore, phosphate finish. Everybody's doing nitride now because it really is probably the best finish you can apply.
Yeah, I think it's been proven to be superior.
And it just lasts.
Yep. So yeah, one question will be different lengths. Why don't you do a short one? Why don't you do 300 blackout? Whatever. We're considering those things. Keep in mind, we wanted to replicate this as close as we could to eliminate quirks in the design. Everything was set up as a system, and we didn't want to deviate from that much to ensure that it was reliable and robust.
We had something we knew would work. Let's start with that. Right?
So this is a great rifle setup. We are researching and reviewing options down the road, but we're quite excited about this setup right here. Anything else I'm missing, guys?
I think the other thing too is just to remind people that the springs now are all in the upper receiver, so it opens up an entire world of folding stocks that don't necessarily have to be a buffer tube. So there's a lot of options there, you know, on top of different lengths, caliber options. That opens up a whole other world, which I'm sure will.
Folding stock that you could shoot folded. You know, so many options there.
We're pretty excited about that. We obviously didn't have that here today, but so like the MCX style Picatinny adapters, you can throw a folding stock on there. You don't want to stock at all for some reason. Go ahead, have fun.
You could do that too.
But really pretty neat possibilities with having no stock, folding stock, and then all the accessories, of course, with the M-lock. And the modern attachment methods really makes it a pretty robust.
There's lots of options. Yes.
Yeah. One of the things I didn't want to forget is I think Dean would agree. Dean and I have some experience in firearms and design and such. We were really surprised how flat this shot and how pleasant it was to shoot. So I think we got a real winner here.
Yeah, recoil impulse is pretty mild. You'll by now have seen some of the videos of us shooting it. It's not exactly snappy. It's very controllable.
And it's smooth.
Yeah.
You know, it's a very smooth gun.
So, anyways, if that's everything, I think we covered a lot of details.
Mm-hmm.
So check them out. They're available on Brownells.com at this time. Probably pre-order. We'll be shipping them soon. And hope you enjoy the rest of the products we have at SHOT Show 2019. Thank you, Dean.
Thank you.